It's so gorgeous to look out here. What a venue. I suppose I should share that about 23 years and 1 month ago, my son decided he wanted to be born early and born in Daisy Hill Hospital. So this place is special to me too for that reason, I suppose. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, I suppose, our journey over the last 8 years in, I suppose, I don't know how to describe it. It's just been this amazing transformative journey for us all. We've put effort, time, sweat, everything, tears, laughter into it, and we don't regret a second of it. And I think if something like this can come out of your project, and I really feel like it can do, I'm feeling emotional, Susie. I think it's actually going to be like an amazing thing for your area and for yourselves personally. So I suppose I'm going to talk about our case study of community-led partnership for climate adaptation, nature restoration, discovery about our place, I suppose, and supported by regenerative tourism, because our area, like yours, attracts a lot of people to see this beautiful place. I am one of 15 directors initially who started and founded Maharees Conservation, and now we have 53 people directly involved in subcommittees. We have 4 subcommittees in a population of 300 people. So I think the virus is spreading and it's just an enjoyable thing to be involved in. So I suppose I'll just introduce what I'm going to be talking about now. So I suppose I'm going to give you a little bit of context about why we started and, you know, why we decided to take action. A little bit about, you know, I suppose the experience of, you know, engaging with nature-based solutions and the evidence behind that and why we decided to choose this particular approach. The role of the partnerships that really were vital in supporting what we wanted to do. And then also the implementation of, you know, actually achieving what we wanted. So for those of you who have never been or not familiar with Maharees Conservation, we're pretty much on the opposite end of the island. We are on the north side of the Dingle Peninsula, and it's a little tombolo that sticks really brazenly out into the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a sandy spit that links two which were offshore islands to the main Dingle Peninsula. And it was always under pressure as long as I know it. And I suppose we have pressures from a lot of different sectors. So it's on the Wild Atlantic Way, if you're familiar with that touristic route. We have the longest beach on the Wild Atlantic Way on the west coast of Ireland, an 11-kilometre stretch of sandy beach. It's always on the best beach lists. We are on the Dingle Way, which is a very famous, internationally recognised walking route. We have a blue flag beach. It's a really popular surfing destination because if you can see, like the Tombolo has got 3 bays around it. So on the left, you've got Brandon Bay. That little nuke is a really handy intermediate windsurfing bay. And then on the right-hand side, you've Tralee Bay that actually featured in that Fair Seas clip there. So which is a really important ecosystem. And I suppose we had a lot of different types of surfers come to the area, and then it became known as this really amazing wild camping destination because in the middle of and you can see with the hatch marks here, if I just show you up here, the hatch marks, if they're clear to you, this little section there denotes a sand dune system, this really dramatic sand dune system that makes up, I suppose, the main part of, you know, the Tombolo there. And, you know, it was a commonage, so not owned by one person. It wasn't fenced off, so it looked like it was just sort of wide open to the public. I think the word commonage was misunderstood. The general public thought this is owned by us, you know, by the state or something, so we have a right to come here. And so in the summer, we would have thousands of people camping on this amazing habitat, which is a special area of conservation for a range of qualifying interest, most notably our natterjack toad. We have 50 to 70, depending on the year, 50 to 70% of the whole country's natterjack toad population, which is an endangered species of toad. And I suppose the landowners, like, they were sort of, some of them are farmers, most of them are like middle-aged or older, and they were sort of intimidated by people who were kind of coming, like, literally there would be raves, there would be birthday parties, there would be marquees rocking up with generators to camp on this place. I suppose our state agencies weren't resourced enough to do anything about it either. So it was just sort of this evolving situation that was wreaking a lot of havoc on this habitat. So that was, I suppose, what we sort of inherited when we started what we were doing. So one of our big challenges obviously is coastal erosion. So we're like, right in the path of the Atlantic storms as they come tracking our way, and then that results in erosion of the sand dune. So our other challenge was this, all of these campers arriving on the scene and having fires and leaving whatever they brought with them after them. And the one on the left-hand side, this actually did happen in our sand dune system as well, but this was 2020 in Banna, kind of a sister special area of conservation sand dune habitat further north to us. This was by a group of teenagers who just wanted to have a little fire in the summertime after their, exams or something, and it just went out of control and burnt acres of sand dune. And I suppose what I can tell you is, okay, birds might be able to fly away, but like little snails, you find their shells inside in that burnt mess. So it's just awful to see that. So that's what we were faced with. And, it seemed like this impossible thing because we were up on all of these European wild camping sites. This is where you can go. So we were kind of, it's really funny, the Killarney Cup project, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but in Killarney they've decided to ban all disposable cups. All the cafes have signed up to it, and it's in a really, like a huge project in our county, but they were writing to their visitors in advance, like by email. So anyone who booked into a hotel, you got an email to say, by the way, we're going cup free, so bring a disposable cup, or you can rent, a little plastic cup just while you're around. We had no way of contacting the people who were coming because we didn't know who they were, because they were wild camping. So we had another problem then with traffic congestion. So in the summer, on a fine day, you would have, again, hundreds of people flocking to the area and literally depositing their car wherever it, happened to land. It could be in your driveway, it could be on a junction. They would just be mad to get to the beach. And so we had this sort of an issue where, women I know would be afraid to drive up the road in case they'd get caught in a traffic jam. Just they wouldn't even go up for a pint of milk in the busy days. And I suppose our big challenge from human behaviour was over a period of 3 decades, and this is just one site that I suppose is the most iconic site that we have. It's Maharees, where you can see from aerial photographs there just this decimated sand dune system. There's no vegetation because if you drive, if you light a fire, if you park and walk on a sand dune, the marm grass dies, and then that root system that would have bound the sand together, it just dies and the sand just blows away. So that's sort of what we had inherited as well. And so again, because there was no provision of services, because we have a short summer season, so the council would never have put in a car park here, and also because of the designation they wouldn't have been allowed to. So this sort of situation sort of happened. So I suppose our other challenge is, the elephant in the room, which is like climate change. So we found these images from the OBW in 2017, and it shows the areas that will be inundated by the end of the century by this promised 1 metre sea level rise. And if you can see that and you're living in one of those areas, it's a frightening prospect because it means you'll no longer be able to live there. My father's actually buried, if you see the picture on the right, the right side of the tombolo, right at the tip, there's a graveyard there. So he's buried right there. And, again, to think that, that this will be an island in the future is frightening. But I know that every action matters now. So, and everything we do actually does count to reducing emissions. So this is why we're driven to work and do what we did. So this came to a crisis point, right, in 2016, when we had a series of Atlantic storms. our sand dunes were really unstable, and we were seeing sand being blown up over the dune onto the only road to the residential areas. So basically most people in Maharees live to the very north of the sand dune system, and so this road, which was connecting them to work, to medical attention if they needed to, was being blocked. And so you didn't know if you were going to get to work in any given day because it was a designated site. People had to wait till the council came to clear the road because that's all that they could do, and no one had a solution. The kids were delighted because they didn't have to go to school because the bus couldn't get down the road. But like, can you imagine like driving up to go to work and facing this? Like, it was just so frightening. So we sort of had this crisis meeting, and there was an academic from the University of Galway at the time who said, look, you need to start mobilising here because, you know, you're not going to get any place dealing with state agencies on a one-to-one basis. You actually need to form a group here. So 15 of us put our hands up in the room. None of us were ecologists or, you know, had any skills in this area. We had no clue what to do. But I suppose we were driven by this crisis point, and we just really wanted to try and help people to live there as long as we can. So I suppose that was the crisis period. But you know, generations of people had been living through erosion. Like my grandfather used to always be afraid of the next storm. What was the next storm we're going to do to the sandbank outside the house that kept, you know, them protected from the storms. And I suppose since then we've been really looking at community engagement, looking at nature-based solutions to repair our sand dunes, and I suppose just trying to share our knowledge with other communities and also with our visitors and our community. So I'm just going to hopefully, and I know Alex said 20 minutes, but might be a bit late to lunch. So I suppose, like to give advice to any community group that's thinking about starting up, I would say evidence is so important. So when we started, a lot of people would have written to the council talking about, you know, congested roads for years. Nothing was ever really done because it's just an individual. It's just your opinion that today the road is quite busy. So what we realised was they actually respond quite well to evidence, which probably isn't that amazing to know, but like it took us a while to figure this out. So I suppose the first thing we did was we engaged with Dr. Eugene Farrell from NUI Galway, and we had to stop this sand deposition on the road because, I mean, that's what we kind of formed to do. So we kind of researched ideas, and one of our own committee members came up with the idea of 3 parallel lines of fencing on the sand dune. Dr. Eugene Farrell gave some scientific information, evidence on the sediment transport pathway that, you know, that sand was taking, put it all into a proposal. The state agency responsible, because it's an SAC, the National Parks and Wildlife Service, said, right, you can do it on a trial basis. The council then paid for the fencing, which is actually quite expensive, and we erected it. But I mean, it was Dr. Eugene Farrell's, I suppose, evidence that really helped kind of, you know, influence the agencies. Another thing we did was we got a traffic counter installed in the summer of 2019, and on 1 week in August, and it was a wet week, we had 23,040 cars travel up and down the road, you know, in this small little place. And then we also did a drone footage, a drone survey of the cars that were wild parked 2 years later, you know, once lockdowns had stopped, and we found 277 cars wild parked on the road. I mean, it's only like a 5 kilometre area we're talking about here. So that kind of information then secured a temporary car park for us. So the council pays for a field that isn't an SAC, that's adjacent to the beach. And we operated it. It's a free car park from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and we shut the gate every night. And I suppose that's just a really, you know, a really useful, practical solution, but wouldn't have come about but for our evidence that we showed, I suppose. And I suppose since then we've been really trying to, you know, first of all, we campaigned to get this flooding and coastal erosion risk management study done. It's almost due to be published, which is going to set out a prognosis for our area. And what can possibly be done with hard or soft measures from an engineering point of view. And we're also building sort of this applied research evidence base. So we are working with in UI Galway, in some studies like we in EPA funded research, and also we took part in Talax.ie. It's a lovely website to go on to actually. It's about community climate adaptation and how and partnerships for adaptation. So that was a really nice project to be involved. We had a poster submitted to accepted by the European Climate Change Adaptation Conference this summer. And that's now been actually cited in the first review of, this climate change assessment report from the EPA just published in the last month. So the point is that involving yourself with academics, and it's great to have Professor Michael Alcorn here. I think it's really great to involve yourself with academics who can help support your proposals and plans. So this just shows you, I suppose, our collaborations since we started. And, we have worked with a lot of these groups because I definitely think that is the secret to success. Understanding the objectives of state agencies, NGOs, other community groups, government departments, and then trying to see how can your objectives align with theirs, and then how can you work together with them. And also even understanding, who's who in these organisations and how they can help you. So I suppose our breadth of activity spans from dune restoration, we do beach cleaning, we are engaging all the time with our agencies, we're engaging with our academics, we're understanding actually that creativity and the creative arts is probably one of the most useful ways to get our message across, and trying to understand how to engage people through that medium. And I suppose I'm just going to very quickly give you some pictures, show you some pictures of what we've been doing. So I suppose one of our biggest activities is dune restoration. So this just shows some of our team in action here. It's a diverse set of people. So we have all of the different types of people who live in Maharees involved. The children get involved too. And I suppose this is just to show you where we started in March 2016, when we had this really undermined dune, damaged sand dune. And so the very first thing we did was we just fenced it off with sheep wire. We decided, okay, these are going to be the routes, and we're going to funnel people through these routes, and there'll be no more ribboning on the sand dune because people will not actually have access to it. So we put down straw bales as well to create some stability on the sand dune. The council filled the gaps in with some sand that they cleared off the road. We planted it, and you can see the 2020 photograph that there's really dramatic recovery. And I think when some of our detractors saw that, people who might have been calling us environmental bullies or something like that at the start, I think that really won hearts and minds for us. So then we also have, we fence the bottom of the foredune then to prevent access onto the sand dune during the summer period. We take these fences down then at the end of the summer period. And we're also engaged with the Caro and Leave No Trace and Clean Coast campaign, which is called Protect Our Dunes. So this just shows you, I suppose, the before and after. If you look at March 2016, you'll see that these sand dunes have no vegetation on them because people are climbing up on them. And then the minute you walk on the marram grass, it just dies. But if you see the October 2022 picture from a summer of not being walked on, you can see that vegetation is really starting to take hold there. And we have just seen the strength of our dunes really grow in the since we've been doing this. So this is this fencing we put in to stop the sand deposition on the road. So you can see that people are very happy and satisfied with themselves after that. And this also shows, if you can just see the 3 lines there of it's very faint there, but you can see the 3 lines of sand trap fencing, and the red area is where the road used to get blocked, the red outlined area. So that road hasn't been blocked since we started, which is, again, I suppose from the community's perspective, it shows that we're being effective. We did a little short clip on sand dunes with Clean Coast funding, and there are 2 of our committee members' children in that. And this is just showing you our temporary car park. The council also put lines on the road to stop that. I know I need to hurry on according to Susie. So also, I suppose we do have little patrols now and again to make sure people aren't camping on the sand dunes. But I suppose from my perspective in relation to your project in particular, sorry Alex, is that I suppose it's the transformation that's taken place in us, right, is that I'm probably 4 generations, or my family's been 4 generations in Maharees, and we never really knew anything about like what the names of the flowers were, or what is that mermaid's purse? Is that a seaweed or something? We didn't have any idea about what was around us really. So we really have engaged with our place. We've learned about the species, we've learned about what makes our place special. And now what we're doing is we're trying to explain that to people, but through kind of fun, engaging activities. So we fundraise, we get experts to come out and lead our community and our visitors all at once on these walks and talks. And I think it's just, there's something, and we've also got like species spotter sheets, and we did a heritage trail that's accessible on mobile phone with funding from the Heritage Council. But I think ultimately, and we have a schedule of summer events, ultimately it's really hard to describe the power of sharing your heritage with people who are visiting and your community, and we're all learning together with an expert. And I think it's got us a lot of support from our visitors. They come out and they plant marram grass with us, or they contribute to our fundraising. And I think also they really respect what we're doing, because they can see we're just volunteers, no one's getting paid here. And I think that's a really powerful part of it as well. Just on the left-hand side is a white skate egg case that I just found last Tuesday. And there were a group of women swimming nearby, and I was like, yay! And so these are really rare. Like they're critically endangered, and I might find one once a year. And I was just rejoicing, because I thought, oh, at least I know there's still a white skate in Tralee Bay, because that's one of their egg cases, and that's like 15 centimetre egg case. It's huge. So it was really great to find that. So that's just showing some of our birding walks. And I suppose our takeaways are firstly that it's a really steep learning curve for any community to understand how to set up, how to have good governance, who's who in the state agencies that can help you. Dune management works. I think someone made the point earlier, like if you just leave nature alone, it will actually restore itself. And we definitely have seen that, even though we did take measures to expedite it. Community agency in climate adaptation, really generates a sense of purpose in us. I mean, we don't regret a second of this. It has transformed us. We are just so delighted to be working for our place. And we know that changes in community and visitor behaviour can happen through this type of approach. But there are limitations to, communities acting on their own. And that's why the collaboration is really important. And I suppose we're just really delighted that we're now embarking on a similar Ignite project in our area with Creative Ireland funding in cooperation with the Dingle Hub. The working title is Creative Coastal Resilience. Our call for artists to apply is still open. If you have any ideas of taking part with us, we'd love it. But I suppose from my perspective, I have seen when you engage a community through creative practice, how effective it can be. The science is important, obviously, but I think it's going to take creatives to really, and the storytellers to really engage people and to mobilise them to take action. So we're just really delighted that we have that project to look forward to now for the next couple of years. So I'd like to thank you and apologise to Alex for going way over time. Thanks.